will be able to hear me very well today. I've got a new headset, so if you do have issues, just unmute yourself and let me know that you're having trouble hearing me. Um, and just please do keep yourself muted unless you have something to say or comment on during the meeting, so that we don't have any background noise that could interfere with the reception. This meeting can be viewed live on Farragut YouTube channel at www.townoffarragut.org/live stream, or charter channel 193 and TDS channel 3. Meeting is being held virtually as authorized through Governor Lee's executive orders regarding the COVID-19 pandemic. So we have a relatively short agenda today, 3 items. And let's see, the first item is going to be a site plan for the next phase of the Villages of Farragut at 230 Village Commons Boulevard. This is the assisted living care senior living community that is just to the north of the New Ingalls building and just south of Waverly Court. So they completed the first phase recently, which was a larger facility building. And now this second phase includes 28 housing units that will be part of the overall community. This is kind of a general layout of what phase 2 includes. It's just to the west of the first phase, and this phase will have single family detached, but mostly single family attached in the form of duplexes that again are part of the overall senior living community. The the road from Access to Smith Road also will be constructed to the binder level up to a point in the project, and then it will be just stone because they want to leave some flexibility in through that section due to future unit construction and grades and things that might have to be modified. So basically you can access into the project from Smith Road. It won't be really open to the public, but it would be open for construction traffic and emergency situations. So let's see here. This is an image that shows the building envelopes, which is a requirement in the senior living community for the single and two family residential components. You can kind of see parts of the existing facility area. Let's see if I can highlight that. That's kind of over in this area. That's where the existing facility is to the east. And then you've got, of course, the, let's see here. And then you've got basically the units that they're proposing here, the 28 units here. These units would be, they basically would look like single and two family houses, the scale and appearance. They do have to be at least 75% brick if you average the 4 elevations, and that is a requirement in the senior living community for the individual residential units, which normally it wouldn't apply in a single family subdivision, but it does apply here as part of the senior living community. So that's something that I need to make sure they address in the submittal. We didn't really have too many comments on this plan. It's pretty straightforward. This is actually the second version of this site plan. The staff had initially reviewed this a couple of months ago, and I think they were trying to determine, the owner was trying to determine how they wanted to deal with the access road off of Smith. So again, what they're proposing is basically, here's Smith Road, and they're going to build to the binder level up to this point, and then through this area, it would not have binder, and basically it gives them the flexibility to make slight adjustments as may be needed based on single and two family units that would be part of a subsequent phase that would front on this section of Village Commons Boulevard. This is not a public street. It would be it's a private access easement that would be open to the public, but it is not platted and dedicated as a public street owned and maintained by the town. So it does have to be constructed to the standards in our subdivision regulations of a local street, and the plans do reflect that. So I'm not sure if Chris or Gary have any questions or comments regarding the plan or anything you want to add to that. The reason I didn't include the building elevations is, for some reason, the initial ones that were submitted were real fuzzy, and it was hard to read. So I think Chris has uploaded some revisions, which we haven't yet brought into the project, but hopefully that'll take care of it.
Mark, I uploaded the individual elevations last night, so if you have trouble with them, let me know, please.
Okay, yep. Does anyone have any questions?
Mark, I had a question.
Yep.
The area up there on the north, the north part of that drive that is
right here,
it's only going to be base stone. How long will that be?
This section here? Yeah.
That's correct.
Chris or Gary, can y'all weigh in on that?
I guess my question is, how long will the base stone be exposed?
That'd be a question for the applicant, really.
Mark, can you hear me? This is Gary.
Yes, I can.
Daryl, the honest answer is I don't know. This will take a year or two to build this second phase, and then that would be part of the third phase,
right?
To go from base stone, and I could see that being there for maybe 3 years. To while we got. Now, having said that, we should be able to plan the third phase units that would impact this sooner than that, and then be able to modify whatever need to be modified and finish out the base, the binder, within that 3-year time frame.
Right. I guess my concern would be possibly losing the fines out of your base stone if it's exposed for any real length of time. Is that something that you could come back in at some point once you have a pretty good handle on what elevations you're going to need to adjust? And
yes, yeah, and in fact, I would like to do that as soon as we can, because that will just be messy.
Okay. I mean, it's not a public street, but it's your street, and
yeah, and exposing it, we're losing some of the value of it every day that it's exposed.
Right. All right. That's all I have.
Mark, this is John Green.
Yeah,
John. Is this a preliminary submittal or final, or what is this?
This is a site plan for phase 2 of this project. So there aren't any public improvements. These are all private infrastructure. But it's basically, because it's a senior living community, it's kind of handled as if it were kind of like a planned commercial development project. It's one big overall project. It would be in different phases. This one is, I think, going to have 3 or 4 phases. There'll be a senior living. I mean, there'll be a probably a memory care licensed facility at some point in the future, and some additional detached and attached residential units that would complete the project.
Okay, and so this will come before the Planning Commission in this form once?
Yes, yes.
Okay. My next question is on this print you're showing us right now, up in the right-hand corner. Is that something new? Looks like a little future parking garage or something. What's going on up there?
There, and that's part of this submittal. It actually was looked at earlier as part of a. Let me zoom in on that. It is. It's some garage spaces, 10, I believe, up here, kind of in the northeast corner of the existing parking lot. So that's going to be done as part of this phase, even though it's detached geographically from this phase. The initial phase was in this area, and then they built the parking lot and access ways through here to a point, and then this is going to be added as part of phase 2, even though it would mostly benefit, I'm assuming, potentially anyone that is in the community that would want to pay for this accommodation. But it's just providing for enclosed garage space for the residents of the community.
Seems like I recall quite some time ago, as a part of the phase 1, wasn't there some proposed parking, at least shelters, with that original submittal? And then that got, I guess that got deleted. Is that correct?
Yes, it was kind of looked at earlier, as you mentioned, several months ago, and I think Gary, the owner, had maybe just withdrawn it at that time, and I don't know if they were revisiting what they were wanting to do, but he could probably speak to that. But basically, they're representing it again and requesting, as part of this phase 2 site plan approval, the approval of those 10 enclosed garages in the northeast part of the property.
On the housing on the left side there, is there any parking along there anywhere for vehicles? It's kind of small, so I'm having a little trouble figuring out what's going on there.
Yeah, and we'll have the full set in the packet. I just selected a couple of plan sheets just for this meeting to show you the general idea of what they're doing. Some of these are accessed directly from the front, and then there's some of them are rear access. It's basically the driveways and the garage spaces are essentially the parking spaces for these units, just the same as it would be for single and 2 family residential as part of a traditional subdivision.
Yeah, I see now. Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Just a note here, the buildings are platted using building envelopes, and that's required in the senior living community text. And the envelopes have to be 20 feet apart. So basically the buildings have to be 20 feet apart, but other than that, there's a lot of latitude in their placement. And they've kind of, like I just mentioned, they've applied both front and rear access concepts here that I think works pretty well with the land that they're dealing with. Some of these units will be accessed through kind of a rear alleyway access, and then some are front accessed. So that's provided for in the senior living community language to give an applicant maximum flexibility. These are not actually going to be public streets. So essentially the people living in here are leasing their spaces. And all the most of the infrastructure is going to be private access easements. Anyone else have any questions or comments? Or Chris or Gary, y'all have anything to add to this? We'll have the building elevations in the Planning Commission's packet. They were just, like I said, pretty hard to read on the submittal. So I can tell you that they're going to look just like, a house that would be built in a subdivision in the town for the most part, or a 2-family unit. That's pretty much what they're going to look like. They're good. They're nice looking building elevations. I don't think anyone's going to have an issue with what you're going to see. Does anybody have any questions or comments on this?
I don't. Thank you, Mark.
Okay. Gary, are you okay? Do you have anything to add?
Oh, thanks. I think, we're ready to get this second phase moving.
Okay.
Hey, Gary, Mayor Williams, do you have an ETA on when you're going to break ground?
Spring.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, we'll take a short break and come back here at 10 for the second item on the agenda, and I'll just catch up with you all then.
Hey, Marcus, John.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I've got some heating furnace problems this morning, so around 10 I may be in on and off this call. I'll try to stay on as much as I can.
Yeah, that'll be important to get that working right now.
Yeah. Well, it's a mystery problem. It comes and goes, so it's a hard one to solve.
Yeah. Okay, no problem.
Bye. Yeah, bye.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started with the second item on staff developer agenda. So if everybody could just mute yourself, please. This involves a site plan for phase 2 of the Kingston Pike Village, which is that South Watt Road, Kingston Pike. This, as you may remember, phase 1 was the multifamily portion of this planned commercial development up here on the south side that I'm kind of circling. Site plan was approved for that. We've actually issued building permits and grading permits in association with that phase. And now they're submitting a site plan for the northern half of the project, I guess, which would include a grocery store on the west side of the property, and then 2 retail shops on the north end adjacent to Kingston Pike. So there's Little Joe's Pizza in this location. So the retail buildings, somebody needs to mute yourself. I don't know, I'm getting some background noise here. So the retail shops would be just to the west.
Looks like Tyler needs to mute.
Of Little Joe's Pizza, and to the east of the Y12 Federal Credit Union, which is in this location. Let's see, just kind of walking through some of and this is the grocery store portion of this part of the site plan. Pretty large site plan of development. We're certainly glad to see this part coming in, so this can all be built generally at the same time or concurrently with the multifamily portion. So that's the grocery store part. And then if you go to the north of that, toward Kingston Pike, you got the 2 retail buildings that actually are up closer to Kingston Pike, with the parking to the south of those buildings, similar to the layout that we've seen on a number of newer buildings in the town, where the buildings are brought up closer to the street, and the parking is kind of tucked in behind to give it a better street presentation. This project also, the grocery store would have a fuel center, and it's proposed in this general location. So that's kind of an overview of project. Let me go back to the full sheet. So here's Watt Road. You come into the project from Watt Road. That's one way to get into it. There's an access also off of Kingston Pike, the existing Y12, which would tie in to this project. There's also a right in, right out over on the east side. That would be between the retail building, the Eastern Retail Building, and Little Joe's Pizza. That'll all have to be coordinated with TDOT. They're doing some work in there, and that was one of the things that staff had put in the initial comments. We did do an initial review of this, and this is one of those projects, even though we've had a concept plan of the whole thing, we do require, before people submit plans, that there is a pre-submittal meeting with the staff, and that's a kind of challenging, obviously, in the COVID era, but that's something that we do need to sit down with the project engineer and potentially the project architect and talk through some of the bigger comments that we had. The plan is not ready for, and won't be on the agenda in December for Planning Commission, but hopefully we can get it to a point where it'll be ready in January. So, a project this large, to have a pre-submittal meeting is really essential. So, I mean, one of the things that we didn't have in the submittal that is okay for a small project, but not for something this scale, is a site lighting plan. That's something that was not included, just as an example. So that's kind of an overview. I don't know if anybody has any questions. What again I would offer is for the staff to get with the project engineer and go through the comments and make sure we're all on the same page so that they can get those addressed and get them resubmitted for January. Does anybody have any questions at this point?
Mark, this is Mark.
Yeah. Yeah, Mark.
Can we schedule the pre-submittal meeting?
We can do that. I'll get with you after this, and we just need to take a little while and sit down with some of the reviewers, and let's just go through this. There have been some changes to what was shown on the concept. Not that they were bad changes, but we just need to talk through some things. We had quite a few comments, and that's not a critique of you or your work. It's just a big project, and there's a lot of stuff to review and to talk through, and it really is essential with a project of this scale to have that pre-submittal meeting.
I have no problems with the pre-submittal meeting. I just want to schedule it as soon as possible.
Okay.
I'll have to coordinate. We have 2 architects now involved. Pat's doing the shop. The grocery store has its own architect.
Okay. Yeah.
Those are the 3 of us to come together and meet with you.
Okay. We could either do it live, or we could do it through WebEx, but we'd need to pull up the whole set of plans and just kind of go through everything.
Let's discuss that after the meeting.
Yeah, that's fine. I guess a question at this point for the commissioners or board members or anyone else that's involved. I tried to lay out just an overview of the project. It's part of this phase. Does anybody have any general questions at this time related to this part of the planned commercial development project? Again, I think it's not going to be on the December agenda for Planning Commission, but I think it could certainly be ready in January. We just need to work through some things on this. But this is generally what they're proposing, and probably generally what you're going to see out there. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Let me go to the building elevations. Obviously, it's not a secret as to who the grocery store is. So this is kind of a general idea of what the grocery store building would look like, and then the shops. This is the north elevation of one of the retail buildings that would be along Kingston Pike. We don't have the other elevations shown at this point. That was one of the comments that we had. But anyway, we can get with the applicant on that. But
so I've got a copy of it. I was wondering.
We have an updated copy of the elevations that Mark can get over to you pretty quickly.
Okay, yeah, we'll just look for all that with the resubmittal to address all the staff's comments, because we got to get those to Mark and talk those through, as part of our meeting for the resubmittal. Yeah.
I would only suggest, just having dealt with Farragut, I don't know what your experience is. Okay. I just want to make sure that our architect is working with staff to ensure that, when we do submit, I guess in January, that there are going to be a lot of problems. I'm sure there are going to be some changes and some alterations, and we fully expect that. But we don't want to go in with a submittal that's going to be, terribly at variance with what the expectation is.
Oh, that's absolutely our goal, is to go through all the comments that we've had in our review over the past few days and just make sure that we're all on the same page, so that when the resubmittal does occur for the January meeting, that it's pretty much ready to go, except for the standard subject twos like a letter of credit or landscape plan has to be approved through the VRB and those kind of things. So yeah, we are totally in agreement with you, and that's really the purpose and intent of the pre-submittal meeting for something of this scale, is to really just talk through some things on the front end and make sure that you know, everything is addressed to the greatest extent possible. There may be a couple of minor things that are still outstanding, but that's certainly our hope, is that the major items have been taken care of and are no longer an issue.
Great. I mean, I'm in full agreement. Yeah, I just for the first time saw the Food City elevation. I've seen the shop elevations, and I've been assured that from our architect that it matches up
The standards.
with what Food Line has submitted, and so I think we need to get that to you as quickly as possible. Just
Mark,
make sure that. Go ahead.
Okay.
For people that not aware who's speaking, can they identify themselves, please?
My name is Thomas Ravenel. I'm one of the partners on this retail site.
Okay, sir. Thank you. We appreciate that.
Sure. Yeah, I didn't know who I was talking to as well. I was like, yeah, I didn't know I was talking to a member of the town of Farragut.
That's the mayor.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor. I didn't know.
No problem. We just, when we're doing this virtually, it's always good to identify yourself before you speak, and in that way, everybody that's listening in is aware of who's talking and what their function is as far as this project.
Yeah, I've done a lot in the last 30 years. I've done a lot of developments, and I always find it's helpful, if I might understate the point, to work with staff to ensure that when we go to submittal, that, you know, we're not just rejected out of hand, and, you know, and we walk away with, you know, dumbfounded because we had not, you know, done our homework up front. And I just want to make sure we're doing our homework.
Yeah, that's the reason Mark has this type of meeting.
I think it's a smart thing to do.
Yeah, I'll get with Mark. First of all, I'll send you the comments, Mark, that we have, and then you can kind of give you some time to look through them and, you know, be thinking about how you want to deal with those, and then we'll get together and discuss a game plan for moving forward.
I'm in favor of that, Mark. But when you send me the comments, could you send the sheet that has the comments on it, not just the 8.5 by 11s, because it's a little hard to follow the 8.5 by 11 sometimes. Yeah,
I will. I'll have to share that with you through OneDrive, but yeah, I could do that. Yeah, we'll send you the Bluebeam files for the summary and the actual sheets that are marked up.
I would appreciate that, because it does, seeing the full sheet where you mark something up does make it easier for us to.
Oh yeah, yeah.
A perfect example is the one we did last month for Nick and I understood 80% of the comments on the 8.5. If I'd seen the full sheet, I might have been able to handle the other 20% very easily.
Yeah, I'll send both those out and give you time to look through them, and then we'll get together. Hopefully, probably next week sometime, or whatever's convenient with your guys, with your all schedule.
Yeah, let's put this in. When you send it, would you give a list of dates for early next week that is available, that you can get the staff available, so coordinate, please?
Yes, I'll check on that for you. Yep.
Appreciate it. We will be there because we want this moving forward as fast and furious as possible. Yeah, and it makes sense because the whole site is going to have to be graded. You know, they can't just build phase 1 as an island on its own, because the whole site has to be graded, and utilities and access and all those kinds of things coordinated. So yes, I understand that. That makes sense to us, and I'll get that information to you, and hopefully we can get together next week sometime. Appreciate it. Does anybody have any
general questions for the staff or the applicant on this part of the project? It's a pretty big project.
Yeah, Mark, this is John Green.
Yes, John.
You said you have quite a few comments. Do you have any significant comments, or just kind of typical comments that you would have from your folks?
Yeah, we have some that could be a little bit. Yeah, I mean, they're all doable, I think, but there's quite a few things that we need to talk through. Yeah.
Okay. And the second thing is, you showed the elevation view of the stores in the front. Can you pull that up again?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, right there.
Yeah. What is I don't recognize what that's supposed to be on are those all windows along there, or what's the deal?
Yeah, I believe it's windows across the front.
Top and bottom, or?
No, just on the bottom part for the transparency, to give it that, yeah. I think the project architects. Yeah, Pat, are you there? Yep. Go ahead, Pat.
And again, this is not the latest. It's broken up more and detailed better, but what you're seeing is just a wall of storefront along the entry, the front side or the parking lot side. Combination of horizontal awnings and sloped awnings and raised parapets, which once you see the updated version of it, it's going to look it's going to be broke up more.
Okay. Thank you. I guess I'm jumping the gun here, but it wasn't quite clear to me what that actually looks like. Thank you. I will wait until the updated version shows up. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions or slides that you want to look at on this?
Mark, I have a question. In that, when I uploaded the full set,
yeah,
I had done that is when I got the updated elevation from Pat, and for the next 2 days afterwards, I have another complete set that includes his correct elevations that I was trying to upload in there, and in fact, I called in and tried to get hold of you to figure out how to do that, since you correct one that it just never gave me an opportunity to do it.
Yeah, I'll just have to get with you on that, and I'll probably have to ask Maria or Karen to help you. Sometimes you'll need to call the My Government Online, depending on what the issue is, but we can talk through that and figure out what's causing the problem, or what needs to be clarified.
If I sent you the revised elevation right now, you couldn't throw it up right now, could you?
No, I don't have it in right here in this right now. No.
I understand. Like I said, in case we could show it.
I would say one thing just on the building elevations, just make sure, Pat, and I know you know this very well from dealing with the overlook and the multifamily part of this phase, is just make sure your masonry requirements are satisfied for both the grocery building and the 2 retail buildings, and all the other architectural design standards that we have in the town. Just make sure you address those specifically with both of these commercial products.
Okay. 7 feet of elevation.
So, does anybody else have any questions or anything you want to ask at this time?
Mayor Williams, is from Mark. Is that second building that faces Kingston Pike, is it pretty much a clone of the other one, just reversed?
Yes, and in the middle, we have a dining, open space area, because we figured the 2 shops, the interior shops on each end, the caps, they would use that space in the middle. very similar to if you go over to North Shore Town Center, how they have that between the two restaurants there.
Okay, sir. Thank you. That's what I need to know.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else have anything? Any planning commissioners or board members have any questions at this point?
Commissioner Bellamy has no comments.
Yeah, the outdoor seating that they're proposing is between the two buildings, kind of in this area. This will be landscaped area in the front between the buildings and Kingston Pike. So, well, unless no one has any other questions or comments or observations at this point, then we'll coordinate the staff level with the applicant and go through these the staff's comments and get the revisions in hopefully for the January meeting.
Mayor Williams, I do have one more. That fuel center over to the left, is that a covered fuel center?
Yes.
Tim? Yeah.
I believe it is.
Yes.
This area here. Yeah.
Yes, that is a cover.
Yes.
It is a
That's
cover.
all covered right there, Mayor. And then this is the kiosk building, I believe.
Yes.
That was one thing that we didn't have any information on with the submittal. That was one of our comments that we needed information on this area, for example.
Mark, considering we've submitted in, we don't have to meet the deadline for January's meeting, which is next Monday. Do we, for review? And get us back in?
Well, the deadline's not next Monday. I mean, that's the deadline for December, if you were going December. Right. Let me look at the calendar here real quick. Because the deadline in January, the deadline is actually December 21st for the January 21st meeting.
Okay, well.
I'm sorry, the January 15th. Hold on, wait a minute. Hold on. No, January 21st meeting, and the deadline is December 21st. Yep.
Okay, that's another reason why we want to get the meeting ASAP so we can have address everything.
Okay. Yep.
Appreciate it. Just wanted to make sure.
Sounds good.
Timelines. Thank you.
Yep, no problem. So yeah, here's the fuel center. This is the access as you're coming in off of Watt Road. And then this is a detention basin area here that's between the commercial part of the development and Watt Road.
Hey,
we're not seeing that, Mark, but
yeah, it's not shown on this drawing. Let me see if I've got it on this. Yeah, here you go. If you look here, here's that detention basin with the walking trail around it. It was one of the open space areas with the concept plan. Was this. There's a little pavilion here. Then here's the fuel center proposal in this location. And then this is Watt Road here. So does that clarify what your question was? Originally, you may remember the loading area, I believe, was on the south end of the grocery store, and they've moved it down to the north end, which actually makes sense because you get it further away from the residential. So that seems like a good change that they've made to the site plan in that regard.
Yeah, I agree, Mark. Is there a connection between Little Joe's and the retail shop?
Yes, there is. Yes,
looks
it's
like
back here.
Also, okay.
It's in that location there. Yeah, kind of on the south end. Yep.
Okay, and
there's a connection to Y12 as well on the west end. Yep.
And that's all agreed upon with both parties on each side.
Yeah, we have a signed easement with Y12 over there. And I believe, didn't Travis Presley come and agree to it? Mark? He was at a planning commission meeting when we were all going over this front site plan.
Yes, he's the location with Little Joe's is exactly the same as it's shown on the concept plan, and has been Travis verbally agreed to it at a planning commission meeting. I can't remember which one of however many we did for the concept and for the apartments. But,
well, I think it had to do with when we were going through that right in, right out, that we didn't necessarily need it, but you couldn't get rid of it because he had an easement there. So if you remember Louise, she said she didn't want to close, a curb cut for an active business. And we all got together and sort of came up with this and agreed to it.
And we worked it out with Daryl Smith also.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure there's no hang up there for you guys.
This is Thomas Ravenel again. So Tyler, are you telling me that everything we need signed by the owner of Little Joe's is with respect to the easements, covenants, restrictions, or the easements, or the egress, ingress, all that's been done?
No, I've done that with Y12. They came in and he agreed to the site plan at
he came
planning
in
commission.
So signed?
I haven't got the legal documents. We just don't.
Right. How amenable do you think he would be to, sometimes, Little Joe's, sounds like a mom and pop. Sometimes they can.
Mark, Travis, will you just touch base with him? Mark?
I can do that.
Mark Bilak?
This is Daryl. I'll give Travis a call.
Okay, thank you.
Mark Bilak, may do well if you have maybe a letter or something from the owners. Just paper the file. Just like to have that on hand. All right.
Mayor Williams, I think that'd be a good idea.
Yeah, we'll need to, plat access easements where you don't have them currently. So if you don't have one in this area here, you'll have to eventually plat an access easement when we do a plat of the whole development for applicable easements, whether they're access related or utility related, or parking related, those kind of things. So we'll definitely make sure that's recorded and runs with the land.
Okay.
Does anybody else have anything you want to discuss on this?
Appreciate it.
Well, hopefully we'll have this before the Planning Commission in January. We'll have it for a staff developer meeting in January if the comments have been addressed. So we'll go from there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next item will be at 11, and that will be our last item for the day. So we'll just take a break until about 11 o'clock. All right, it's 11 o'clock. We're going to get started on the last item on the staff developer agenda for today. This item involves a request for a zoning ordinance text amendment associated with the Farragut Town Center at Biddle Farms project. As you may remember, the Planning Commission meeting last month, Planning Commission recommended zoning map and future land use map amendments that were requested by the applicant, and those will be going to the Board of Mayor and Alderman in January. And now the applicant has requested some text amendments to address the specifics, I guess, of their project. Just a note about text amendments. As planning commissioners and board members know, these are actually very common, not just in the town, but in all communities for the most part. You know, ordinances get written and they might reflect a condition that was relevant at that time, but things and projects come up and changes occur, and ordinances are really kind of they're not a static document. They're kind of a pragmatic, dynamic document that you know, changes with time and conditions and context modifications. Just some recent text amendments that have been through the Board of Mayor and Alderman. You know, we had some changes to our office zoning district that added a couple of uses that weren't allowed previously to that. You know, we made some significant changes to the zoning and ordinance and the zoning map to work with the Top Golf project north of the interstate. The PCD project at Watt Road, we made amendments to the PCD district at that time to actually allow for residential as an option in planned commercial development. It wasn't an option prior to that, and that was a few years ago. Most recently, we completely overhauled the sign ordinance, and we made some changes to our special events and grand opening sign provisions in the zoning ordinance. So the point is that these ordinances, you know, when they're written, they can't reflect every envisioned circumstance, you know, that might come up in the future. I mean, they have to we do the best we can to try to capture, you know, what we're doing at the time. But when projects come up, especially complex projects like this one, you know, frankly, it's very uncommon that you wouldn't need some kind of text modification request. So luckily for this project, it's pretty minimal. And let me just give you an overview of this is a little bit, the ordinance is a little different with regards to planned commercial development zoning district, where you have the mixed use town center as your future land use designation. Basically, when that occurs, which is what the applicant has requested, the requirements for the uses and the requirements for those uses fall back to the mixed-use town center portion of the general commercial zoning district. The reason for that is that anything that's commercially zoned has kind of that's within the mixed-use town center has kind of a consistency to it in terms of building style, placement, masonry percentages, and all those things that kind of contribute to a town center effect. So that's kind of a little bit of an unusual situation in this case, because really what we were falling back on are text amendments that might be needed to the C1 mixed use town center portion of the zoning ordinance, not really the planned commercial development portion. And that, again, it's pretty minimal. In looking at that, their project mostly complies with that language. There's one section currently that would need to be requested for amendment, and that is that residential is an option provided it's located in the upper stories. That's the current language in C1 mixed use town center for residential uses. And that language, as I mentioned earlier, reflected kind of at that time the idea that these mixed-use buildings would always be vertical, that we wouldn't have a horizontal option, which is what we have with this particular project. So the language there would need to be revisited. We've had discussions with the town attorney, and we'll put together a final draft of this language in the ordinance for y'all to look at. And basically what we need to clarify, I think, is that residential, provided it's on the upper stories of a vertical mixed-use building, it also would be permitted on all stories if it were part of an approved horizontally configured mixed-use town center development plan that would be within the planned commercial development zoning district. So that's kind of the general language that we're looking at right now for that part of the C1 mixed-use town center text. To kind of differentiate between the idea that you could have a vertical mixed-use building with residential on the non-ground floors, and then you also could have a horizontal mixed-use development, which is frankly more common and more doable in a suburban setting like the town. So that language would just address that kind of situation. Another thing that would be unique to this project, and we would want to encourage with any mixed-use town center development, is that on-street parking is going to be a component of a town center development. And currently, if you took a literal reading of the zoning ordinance, this would be a component of the parking lot, and you really couldn't have on-street parking because the parking lot has to be set back 20 feet from the front property line or 10 feet from side and rear. So basically, we would have some language in the ordinance that would basically state that on-street parking would be exempt from setback requirements, because this parking potentially could be actually in the public right-of-way, which obviously wouldn't meet any setback requirements. And we certainly wouldn't want to discourage on-street parking because it's not permitted in the ordinance currently. And then the third thing, I think, deals with accessory structure height. In the PCD district, which we wouldn't really be going by, you can go up to 25 feet for like a clubhouse or a comparable amenities building. And we could certainly do that with the C1 mixed-use town center. Applicant originally had requested 35 feet, but I guess a question that I have in looking at their building elevations is how they're measuring that height. It would seem to me that, and let me show that here on the screen, these clubhouse buildings, the way that height is measured in the town, in our zoning ordinance, you go from the average grade of the ground interface with the building to the midpoint of the roof line on a roof like this. And then in the case of the language in PCD currently, it would be 25 feet, would be basically where you could go up to. And so really the building, depending on the pitch of the roof, could be well over 30 feet in height. So that's something that needs to be clarified in terms of what they really would need to try to have revisited with regards to accessory structure height. The C1 mixed-use town center accessory structure height would have to be amended regardless of the interpretation, because it's currently capped at 15 feet unless it's a parking garage. But we could, to be consistent with the PCD district height for accessory buildings, propose 25 feet so that it would be consistent, again, with that existing language in PCD, assuming that their measurement, that would be compatible with with their proposed building and how they're measuring the building height. So that's something that I think needs to be clarified for the staff, and then we would know how to present that in the ordinance. So really, in looking at, again, the text amendments in relation to this project, they're pretty minimal, certainly much more minimal than what we had with Top Golf north of the interstate. Considering the complexity of this project, it's there's not really a lot left here. They've narrowed down quite a few of the original text amendments that they were thinking they might need, and I think they've been able to address those with revisions to their plans. So with that, I guess if you all want to talk about this or have any questions or anything to add, then I'll be happy to try to answer any questions or go through that in more detail or try to explain it better. It's a little bit complex with the PCD and the C1 mixed use town center and how those regulations are applied. But again, the intent was you may have PCD that's not in the mixed use town center like the project out at Watt Road. So how it looks and feels is going to be a little bit different than if you had a PCD project in your mixed use town center area. You'd want to have, similar to what they're proposing, you'd want to have, you know, a town street cross section, buildings brought up closer to the street, you know, kind of more public gathering spaces, and just a really different look and feel than what you would see outside of the mixed use town center. And to try to provide for that, the provisions are consistent between C1 and PCD. Does anybody have any questions or comments at this point?
Hey, Mark, this is Don Kendall calling.
Hey, Don. Yep.
How are you?
Doing good. How are you?
Hey, I wanted to comment on the accessory structure. I believe that's
okay.
right now. I believe that 35 feet is the top of that roof line.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll go back and determine exactly what it is to go mid roof line, and then we'll submit that back to you via email today.
Okay. Yeah.
And to be clear, is the requirement 15 or 25?
Well, currently in C1 MUTC, it'd be 15, so it's going to have to be amended. What we're trying to do is minimize the amount of proposed adjustment. So basically, if you can get it to 25 feet, at least that's consistent with the current height limitation in PCD outside of the mixed-use town center area.
Okay. I'll try to get answers for that today.
So basically, where that red dot is where you measure from midway through that, from the eave to the roof, to the top of the roof, midpoint. As long as that to the ground, average ground level is not more than 25 feet, you'd be good with the 25.
Okay.
All right. Anybody else have any questions?
Mark, this is John Green. I don't really have any questions. Everything that I see here is consistent with what we've already pretty much agreed upon with the presentation for this project. So I think it looks fine. Thank you.
Mayor Williams, I agree with Commissioner Green. It's pretty much what we thought. Thank you.
And like I said, I'll send out some final language dealing with the residential component, but the general idea is that currently, you know, residential's only allowed in a vertical mixed-use building in C1 mixed-use town center or PCD. mixed-use town center, and we're just trying to provide some language that would, as part of a larger planned commercial development project in the PCD district, give them an option for having a horizontal mixed-use layout that's part of an overall town center development plan. Because, you know, as I mentioned earlier, especially in outside of urban areas, horizontal mixed use is more common nowadays than vertical mixed use, in what I've at least been looking at. And so, you know, it just needs to be acknowledged that this is reality, and that's probably the biggest language modification that we would be looking at. But again, it just acknowledges, you know, the reality of what we see in the market and in this kind of setting. Does anybody else have anything you want to comment on or add to this discussion, or questions? Either I've thoroughly confused everybody, or I've presented it to where you could somewhat understand it, I guess. I'm not sure which.
Well, I don't think you confused it. I think it's pretty well presented. Go ahead, Bud.
Yeah, this is Bud calling. Mark, I think you did an excellent job. So I wasn't even going to say anything, but I want to thank you for that, and thank all of the commissioners, participants that are on. Thank everybody for all their hard work on this project.
Well, we'll put something in an ordinance format, and it'll be similar to what I've discussed here in those three components, and that'll be up for recommendation by the Planning Commission on the 17th. So if anybody has anything they want to mention to me in the meantime on this, just let me know. And but I'll be sending out that, so y'all have time to look through the language, and if you see something that needs to be modified, then there'll be an opportunity to do that.
Okay, Mayor Williams, we've got looks like three planning commissioners on the call here, so now's a good time for questions. I know Commissioner Green's already asked you.
Mayor Scott Ruff.
Go right ahead.
Yeah, Mayor, I agree with Commissioner Green's comments as well. I think it looks good. It's pretty straightforward. Thank you.
Does anyone else have any comments? Does that make sense about the residential, to acknowledge the opportunity to have it allowed as part of an approved horizontally configured mixed-use town center development plan, if it's within the PCD district and part of a larger PCD-related project?
That amendment appears to be pretty straightforward and clear, Mark.
Okay.
Commissioner Bellamy, it's very straightforward to me as well. Thank you.
Okay, well, unless someone else has a question or comment, I guess that will conclude our staff developer meeting for today. So you may have any last minute comments or thoughts, or questions unrelated to any of these agenda items that you want to bring up?
Mark, this is John Green. I will say that your sound is 10 times better than it has been in the last few meetings. So I guess whatever you're doing is working.
Oh, yeah. I'd have to credit Allison and Joe with that. They got me a headset now. So
thank you for that, Mr. Tiffley.
I look more more like a geek than ever before, but I still, but it works. So
Hey,
that's
Mark,
good.
Mark, yeah. I did, Scott Russ. I did have one question too, and it is unrelated to the amendments. It refers to the building height for the multifamily 4-story. Did I see, I think in the last rendering for the conceptual plan, that those buildings would be 49.5 feet rather than the 55 that's allowable? Or was that not?
Yeah, I mean, Don would have to speak to that specifically, but
that's correct.
Basically, okay, yeah, in the C1 mixed-use town center, as opposed to the planned commercial development district, it currently allows for 4-story buildings, so that height wouldn't have to be amended in the C1 mixed-use town center. It's just that residential component would acknowledge the fact that you could have residential in both a vertical and a horizontal mixed-use development, basically, if it's part of the planned commercial development.
Okay, I got you. Thank you.
Yeah. Does anyone else have any questions for staff or the applicant? Or okay. Well, I guess this concludes the staff developer meeting for December 1st, and we will be, I guess, reconvening on December 17th at the regular Planning Commission meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Appreciate all the effort on this. It's real good.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.